How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford once again. My name is Blake Holmes, and I'm here with my co-host Isaiah Addair. Stick around with us as we're going to be talking about the recent action around the NBA, NCAA basketball, and our predictions for the upcoming football action this weekend. On that note, let's jump right in. Starting off with NCAA basketball, Tuesday night, number 1 Duke knocked off number 2 Michigan State in a clash of titans, 88-81. This was a huge win for the Blue Devils, trying to make their stamp on this NCAA season. The leading scorer was Grayson Allen for the Blue Devils, a senior this year, dropping 37 in this game. Michigan State had 3 players with 19, Miles Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Nick Ward. Isaiah, what does this win mean for Duke?
I think it means it just shows that Grayson Allen can still lead a team. Yes, they might have had one of the top recruit in the nation, Marvin Bagley. He was hurt, and up until this game when he was out for injury, he was a star player. Like, he was putting up 24, 25 points in the first couple games, and then he gets hurt. So it's like, okay, your leading scorer from the season, your biggest playmaker so far, what are you going to do? And Grayson Allen says, hey guys, I'm still here.
And we get to see this season if Grayson Allen has matured a little bit, because he is notorious for the tripping scandals, for everything that had occurred in the past week, and it's just, or in the past years. So we get a chance to see, did he really improve? Did he really mature from his past? And right now, I like the way he's looking, and he'll be looking to make I think he'll be looking to make a push to be a lottery pick, or maybe even late first round in the upcoming NBA draft. The top 5 in your college basketball rankings are, again, these have not been updated. These were still the preseason polls. They will be updated soon, but you have Duke at number 1 at 3-0, Michigan State at 2 with 1-1, that one loss being to number 1 Duke. Number 3 is Arizona, 3-0. Kansas at 2-0, and number 5 is Kentucky at 2-1. Notably, they struggled in their season opener with Utah Valley, actually having to go to overtime with them and winning by, I think it was by double digits. And their only loss this season is to number 4 ranked Kansas. So another question we got to ask right now, we got to ask about the current college team right now for us. Radford, they're 2-1 right now. They've beaten Georgia Southwestern, and they just knocked off Eastern Carolina. They have only lost to Ohio State, a proven Big Ten team, by 10 points. So it begs the question, is Radford for real? Do they have a shot in the Big South this year?
I think Ohio State, they might not be as notable on the basketball court as they were years ago. I remember, I think it was 5 years ago or so, when they were playing Party in the USA by Miley Cyrus pregame.
You also had D'Angelo Russell coming from there,
yeah.
Evan Turner back a long time ago, things like that, players like that.
Yeah, they might not be as much of a powerhouse, but they're still a big school, Big Ten team. You can't count them out of any sport on any year. So only losing to them by 10 points and knocking off Eastern Carolina. Eastern Carolina's may not be a powerhouse either, but then again, they're bigger than Radford is.
Again, a notable fact about that Ohio State game, it was in Columbus. Obviously, Ohio State probably wouldn't come here, but to go into a hostile Big Ten environment and escape with only a 10-point loss, I think is very admirable. And honestly, you always got to look out for Campbell. Chris Clemens is a superstar. He actually worked out with a couple of NBA teams this year, and then pulled out right before the draft deadline, announced he was coming back for his junior season. Lit up the Highlanders last year here in Dedmon, and even dropped 51 points in a Big South tournament game. So Campbell's always one of those teams you got to look out for. Winthrop is looking to is defending their Big South championship, and I think it'll be a fun year. But Radford definitely has a shot by all means. So the results in the NBA last night, the Warriors were taken down by the Celtics, 92-88. The Celtics absolutely on fire. Kyrie Irving is a man on a mission, and They get the job done in TD Garden. The big game last night, surprisingly, was the Houston Rockets taking down the Phoenix Suns 142 to 116. Houston dropped 90 points in the first half. They scored more points in the first half than Golden State did in their entire game. Phoenix had a very good first half offensively. They had 65 points, but when the other team is dropping 90 points in a half, I don't understand. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. So, is Houston? Can we consider Houston an NBA Finals candidate right now? An NBA Finals contender, by all means?
Yes. Simple answer, yes. Yes, they may. I think they'll end up meeting Golden State in the Western Conference Finals, like most people. Golden State, after last night's games, just half a game back. But these rankings can move around quick. I mean, just this time last week, Denver was number 3 in the West. Now they're number 6. So things happen quick. So I don't know.
I think right now you gotta believe. I still think Golden State escapes and gets to the NBA Finals. However, it's not going to be an easy track as it was last year.
I think it'll go all 7.
Last year they swept all the way up until the NBA Finals. It's not going to happen this year. The West is too loaded, and Houston is. I think honestly, Houston might be able to knock them off in a series. I don't think it will happen, but I think they could, purely because also Golden State. Who's to say Golden State wouldn't get beat up on their way to the Western Conference Finals, and then Houston can. I mean, I guess Houston would be the same thing, but in a sense, Houston would be playing a weaker or not necessarily as up to par Golden State team as they would maybe in the first round. But, that's the same thing can be said to them. I think that Houston has a shot, but Golden State still probably needs to be considered the favorite.
Yeah, I'd say unless there's an injury to multiple star players, or I'd say the two that would probably Houston would have a chance of taking Golden State's spot in the finals would be if Steph got hurt or Draymond Green. Because Steph is the leader. KD even came out and said that Steph is the leader of the team. He keeps everybody together. If Clay was hurt, KD and Steph would be shooting more, which is never a bad thing. If KD's hurt, they have the team that they already won a finals with. But if Dre's hurt, that's their defensive anchor. If Steph's hurt, that's their leader. So as long as those guys are healthy and you're not missing 2 other big-name guys, then I think that they'll be back in the finals. But there's always a chance.
The big trade this week, Eric Bledsoe finally getting what he wanted out of Phoenix, being sent to Milwaukee for Greg Monroe in a 2018 second-round protected pick. Greg Monroe actually had a very solid debut last night for the Suns, obviously overshadowed by Houston's scoring attack. And I think that Eric Bledsoe going to Milwaukee could be a very good thing for him. They didn't really have a true proven point guard. But then again, they don't really need one because Giannis plays a lot of the responsibilities, and especially, he plays some point guard every once in a while. And I think Eric Bledsoe, that can help him in Milwaukee, but we'll have to wait and see what that does. So another topic that's been tossed around a good bit in the media here these days, Lonzo Ball. Some people believe he should have been playing better than he is right now. According to some people, he is struggling. Do those struggles really mean anything at this point right now?
He has played how many games? Very small number. It's 15 games. If we're basing players off the first 15 games, basketball, I'm not as aware of, but just in any other sports, you got guys like, Peyton Manning, John Elway, all these guys, Joe Montana, Steve Young. Sports would be different if you base the player's career off 15 games. Should it change up a little bit? I think he's trying to shoot from the three-point line too much. I think he needs to rely on being pass first and getting guys open looks and then driving into the paint. But because I do think that his shooting motion it's unorthodox, and it may be the reason he's not being as successful in the NBA. But if it's not working, then don't shoot threes. He's never been like the best 3-point shooter ever. Do what you know, do what you're good at, and the rest of the game will come along.
The comparable stat line right now, he's very close to Jason Kidd in his rookie year, a Hall of Fame point guard. He Kid averaged 11.7 points, 7.7 assists, and shot only 38% from the floor. Whereas Lonzo Ball is shooting 30% from the floor, averaging 9 points, 6.9 assists, and actually 6.6 rebounds. Is it the same? No. But we also got to keep in mind the kid's only 20 years old. That's what people got to realize these days is we are banking a 19 and 18-year-old to be superstars by game 12, by game 5. And it's absolutely ridiculous when you got to realize, I mean, yes, LeBron James came out and was a superstar from the beginning. But then again, those are once-in-a-lifetime players. You don't get LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. They're once-in-a-lifetime players in a sense. But a lot of times you don't see these players. Even Stephen Curry, for an example, he didn't really make his rise to fame until a good little stint in the NBA. After some injury issues, something like that, he eventually picked it up, and now he's considered one of the better players in this league. So it's not fair to him to dismiss him from the beginning. And I don't think his father helped at all when it came to that. So the hypothetical for the day, this is something we do every week. Dark horse MVP candidate. And when I say this, I don't mean MVP candidate that was a dark horse at the beginning. I mean right now. If who is not completely showing out that has a chance to by the end of the season.
That's a good question. I don't know. Part of me wants to say Chris Paul, but then you have another MVP candidate in James Harden, and usually if you have two candidates, neither of them wins. Two candidates that are high up in the rankings. So I don't know. That's a very good question. Part of me wants to say John Wall. I mean, he's not flashy. He gets the job done. Washington's not playing bad. I'd make the argument that they're the number 3 team in the East, in talent-wise and finals potential, behind Boston and Cleveland. So I think John Wall may be my dark horse.
I don't know if you have to consider him an underdog or a dark horse at this point, but you got your clear cuts right now. Giannis, Kristaps Porzingis is playing very well. LeBron James is always going to be there, but honestly, one of mine is Kyrie Irving. You take a look at what he's done in this Boston team. Yeah, it's a team that won. That they got the 1 seed last year, but you have an 0-2 start, and you've won. I think it's 13 games in a row now. Even playing through a facial fracture with a mask, it's just the fact that Kyrie can play through what he's doing and lead this Celtics team to this record and this incredible play that we've seen. I think it warrants MVP talks. I get you have Al Horford, and I think right now your Rookie of the Year, right behind Ben Simmons, is Jason Tatum. But I like what Kyrie's doing for this Celtics team. So, on to the NFL. Our player to watch out for this week. So, whether it be a big name player or one that people don't necessarily think about, who is poised to have a breakout performance this week?
I'm going to go with 2 players. One is a name that we haven't really heard of a lot in the coming years. And I pay especially attention to this game because I'm an Arizona Cardinal fan, but it's interesting. I think it's a good headline. It could be the beginning of a good story. Blaine Gabbert. Bruce Arians came out this week and said that the only reason Gabbert has not had success in the league is because he played for 2 bad franchises. And were the franchises bad? I don't think. But were the teams bad? The Jaguars and the Niners after Harbaugh.
The Jaguars, especially at that time. Right now, they're a very respectable team, but at that time, yes, I would agree.
Yeah, there were some really bad teams. So Bruce Arians thinks that was what was holding Gabbert back. And if he's got Adrian Peterson behind him, Larry Fitzgerald, who just signed an extension out wide, John Brown, Jaron Brown, J.J. Nelson, since he's got an arsenal and a decent defense now, I think he could do stuff, especially against Houston's defense. Houston's defense has not been as good since Watson's injury. They're on the field more. They've not been playing as well. I think another player might be I'm not really expecting a big game from him, but I think it's going to be interesting to watch him. would be Brett Hundley. He's playing against a Baltimore defense whose secondary has been playing off and on. They've been very inconsistent. But when they're playing good, they could make a case for probably one of the top defensive teams in football on a good week. I think it'll be interesting to see how Hundley plays against a defense with the secondary that has Tony Jefferson, Carr, and Webb. It'll be interesting.
So mine, I also agree. I have two right now. One of them is Matthew Stafford going up against Chicago. Chicago not really necessarily known as a defensive powerhouse by any means in this NFL. So when you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford right now, I think he's poised for a huge game. When I say huge, I say expect, in my opinion, over 300 yards and 2 touchdown passes against the Chicago Bears defense. I also like Todd Gurley against the Minnesota Vikings. You know, he's got a proven defense he's got to go up against right now. Gurley, known this year as one of the better running backs in the NFL, if not the best this season. And right now, the Rams will be looking to avenge. They've lost 3 straight against the Minnesota Vikings. So I think Gurley could get it done, and Jared Goff is always one to look out for. But Goff has played very well, but I think Gurley is the main driving force behind that, and it'll be an exciting game to look out for. So last night, huge win. The Pittsburgh Steelers knocked off the Tennessee Titans 40-17. Pittsburgh found their offensive footing in the second half. Antonio Brown with 144 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Marcus Mariota picked off 4 times and struggled mightily against this defense. The Steelers are at 8-2, and the Titans are at 6-4. So, and also Cody Sensabaugh, replacement for Joe Hayden, came up big, recording an interception in the first half. And again, the Steelers defense just dominated this game. So it's time to ask the question: is Antonio Brown the best receiver in the league? Is there anyone that can compete with him right now?
Can compete, yes. But is it possible this season? No. So I think he is the best receiver. Julio Jones has been struggling with injury. Now I think Brown may be the most talented receiver. Julio Jones is the best, in my opinion, because of the physical gifts that he has. But he's hurt, so he can't be in the conversation. Like, he's been having a down year because of injury. And then OBJ, super talented and physically gifted, but he's hurt as well. So Brown would still be in conversation for the top spot if they were healthy. But right now, it's a no-brainer in my opinion because they're both hurt.
I feel like Odell also has a little bit of a different mindset that he needs to have compared to what someone like Julio or AB. And another one I think we got to look at, although I agree, I think Antonio Brown is the best receiver in football, is DeAndre Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. He hasn't played very well, but when you have Tom Savage throwing you the ball, you can't really help that. When he had Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball, he was
lights out.
Exactly. He was a very good wide receiver. So I think DeAndre Hopkins deserves some talk. AJ Green's always there. But I think right now the best receiver in football is Antonio Brown. So another question about this game. 2 questions, in fact. Do the Tennessee Titans win the AFC South? I honestly don't believe so. I like this Tennessee team, and I think they squeak into a wild card spot, but I like Jacksonville to win this division.
I also think Jacksonville won the division. Tennessee, I think they're a contender in the division. If they get the running game going, I was just looking at the stats from last night. The running game was not very productive last night. So the defense knew that Mariota was going to be throwing it more. So if they can get the run game going, if they got Derrick Henry and DeMarco Murray, there should be no reason to not have it going. And they have a good offensive line. So there's no excuse for that. But if they can get that going, then I think they could be a contender for the AFC Championship game. But you got to start from the bottom and win the division, or at least get close to winning the division first by working out those problems.
Baby steps, in a sense. Are either of these teams legitimate Super Bowl favorites? I think, the NFL is one of those sports. If someone can get on a run at the end of the season, anyone. If you can get into the playoffs on a decent streak, anyone's a Super Bowl favorite. notable teams have proven that. A good example, the one off the top of my head, since we're talking about them, the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 2005. Back in 2008, they were a 6 seed, it was 2005. When they knocked off the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, they were a number 6 seed, and they had won, I believe it was 6 straight games to get into the playoffs. And you saw what happens. Any team that can get on a run at the end of the season and make the playoffs always has a shot. So do I think Tennessee is out of the Super Bowl yet? No. I think their odds are as high, maybe, as Pittsburgh's is, and even New England, Kansas City, teams like that. But right now, if you want me to, honestly, at this point, if you tell me to pick a favorite in the Super Bowl for the AFC, it's very small amount Pittsburgh over New England. And literally, if New England comes out and wins Sunday, then my opinion can change just like that. But I think right now, you can't ignore Pittsburgh's finally getting their footing on offense.
AFC, my favorite is I do like Tennessee and Jacksonville a lot, but I think Pittsburgh's the clear favorite for me because although New England only has lost 2 games, that 2 games that they've lost, it was because the offense could not hold up their end. Because the offense is having to just outgun every team. I think every team in the AFC playoff picture has the potential to beat New England because how much of a liability their defense is. So if they can stop the run and somewhat contain Tom Brady, then New England's going to fall because their defense can't keep them in the game.
That's another reason why I think, because Pittsburgh right now, their defense is playing lights out. They're finding their footing on offense. They're figuring out how to play a complete football game and not just a shutout. Or I won't say a shutout, a defensive standpoint, or even a shootout. They're learning how to play a complete game, something that New England still needs to work on by the end of this season. But, again, they still have time. So the NFL playoff picture right now, Pittsburgh for the AFC. Pittsburgh is number 1, New England at 2, Kansas City at 3, Jacksonville at 4, Tennessee at 5, and Buffalo at 6. Rounding up the NFC is Philadelphia, still at the number 1 spot, Minnesota, New Orleans, the Los Angeles Rams, the Carolina Panthers, and the Seattle Seahawks. So let's get into our game-by-game predictions. This is something we do every single week, going through every game. And this week we're also going to be discussing next week's Thursday game. So let's jump right in. The Lions at the Bears. I like the Lions in this game. Again, I think Matthew Stafford has a field day, and the Bears are one of those teams, every time I pick them, they seem to struggle. So I'm going to go with the Lions.
I'm going to go with the Lions as well. They're the Lions. The Bears' defense, it has been playing better this year. So I don't think you can really overlook the defense too much. But rookie quarterback, and if it comes into a strength of offense, I'm going to choose Matthew Stafford over Mitchell Trubisky. So Lions.
The Jaguars at the Browns. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Until the Browns win a game, I'm not picking the Browns, so I'm going with the Jaguars. Jags won a close game last week against the Los Angeles Chargers. Blake Bortles is finally starting to look at times like the quarterback we would have hoped, but it's still the defense carrying a major load on that team. And Cleveland is Cleveland. Once again, I'm not picking the Browns until they prove to me that they deserve to be picked, so I'm going with the Jaguars.
See, I'm on the opposite of the spectrum. Even though I'm picking the Jaguars, but for a different reason. I'm not going to stop picking the Jaguars until they show me they can lose. I mean, they're 6-3. Most people expected them to win no more than like 4 games. So I'm not going to stop picking them until they start losing to teams they shouldn't lose to.
They've got a win-win situation this week when it comes to their opponent. The Ravens at the Packers. I like the Ravens in this game. I promise you, it's not that I'm just picking every away team right now, but I like the Ravens in this game. Brett Hundley still, I don't think he gets it done against this really stellar Baltimore secondary, and I just don't. And I think Joe Flacco, while it's a fun topic to talk about, is Joe Flacco elite? I don't think he is anymore. But Alex Collins gets the running game going. I think Baltimore wins this game by at least 10 points.
I disagree with that one. It's at Lambeau. So and not just it being at Lambeau, Brett did not have a bad game last week. I don't know if you heard our show last week when I called him out, but he didn't have a bad game, and he might have been one of the reasons that they won last week. So, and then Devontae Adams, you can't sleep on him. You can't sleep on Jordy or Randall Cobb. Their running game starting to get going with a few more guys stepping up behind Ty. So I think in Lambeau especially, Green Bay will pull it out. It might be close. It's not going to be a blowout by any means.
It is worth noting that Green Bay did play Chicago, which again their defense isn't stellar, but they're always one of those like weird teams. They're going to either be a team they shouldn't, or they're going to lose by at least a touchdown. So and Green Bay going there last week, it was up the ladder. Mm-hmm. So it'll be an interesting game, that one especially. Baltimore still fighting for a playoff spot, and technically so is Green Bay. The Cardinals at the Texans. I'm going again with what I was saying. Give me the Cardinals. I'm not going with a Tom Savage-led Texans team right now, unless they're playing the Browns or the 49ers or something like that. And plus, as you stated, Blaine Gabbert starting this week. Arizona's defense, I think, shuts down Tom Savage, and I think Arizona escapes Houston with a win.
Yeah, I'm going with Arizona too. I'm not afraid to pick against my team. I'm not afraid to. They've had a bad year this year on many fronts. But Blaine Gabbert, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and throw a bold prediction out. Gabbert's going to have 250 to 300 yards. He's going to have 3 touchdowns. He's going to complete more than 48% of his passes like Drew Stanton. So he's going to at least complete 50%. So I'm going with the Cardinals because of Gabbert.
So you're saying right now, I get you're high on Blaine Gabbert, but right now technically it's the best of a bad situation in a sense also. Mm-hmm. Especially with Carson Palmer going down with that broken arm. So the Bucks at the Dolphins. I'm breaking my streak and I'm going with the Dolphins. I think that Kenyon Drake for the Dolphins has a decent game, and I like the Dolphins in Miami. The Bucks have underachieved. They've underperformed this past little bit, and I like the Miami in this game, in Miami.
See, this game is Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Jay Cutler, and I honestly don't like the kind of feeling that gives me. But I think
I wrestled with that topic for a while last night whenever I was looking at this game, and honestly, I took the more seasoned vet when it came to Jay Cutler over Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I like Fitzpatrick. Super smart guy. He actually, I think, got a 39 on the Wonderlic when he took it coming into the league. Harvard grad, super smart. Tampa. I can't get myself to pick Tampa, even though usually when I pick against them, they win. I've noticed. I don't think, again, I said the same thing last week. They won't be eating a W this week, especially in Miami. Kenyon Drake is, I don't want to say he's the real deal, like on the level of some of those upper Echelon running backs, yeah. But I don't know. He's above average.
Look for Jarvis Landry to have a good game in this game as well.
Definitely. And Devontae Parker, I think, will have a decent game at least.
The Rams at the Vikings. This is a tough game for me. It's literally the number 2 versus the number 4 team right now. And I think that this is a game that could be high scoring. Even though the Vikings defense has been playing very well and the Rams still have Aaron Donald, I think that this has all the potential of a high scoring game. Case Keenum is playing a lot better than everyone expected him to for the Vikings. I have to say that I like the Vikings in Minnesota. As much as I like this Rams team, I love Todd Gurley. Jared Goff still looks very good. Sammy Watkins. But just that home field advantage in Minneapolis, I like Minnesota.
The battle of 2 quarterbacks that played for the Rams last year. And both of them completely underperformed.
What does that say about Jeff Fisher?
Jeff Fisher's trash. I actually saw an interesting statistic yesterday or the day before. I think it was the midway through the season. It might have been after 8 games. It might have been 9. The 2 quarterbacks, given Case Keenum didn't even play the first 3 games, was it? 2 games? No, 2 games.
This year?
Yeah.
It was, I believe, the first 2 games.
Yeah, he didn't play the first 2 games. And so 10 or 11 total games, they combined for a lot more touchdowns and passing yards as both of them did last year in a 16-game schedule in St. Louis. And that was with 5 games to spare each. So 5-ish games. Yeah. So I think I'm gonna go with. I think the quarterback situation is pretty equal. I think the defenses are pretty equal. I would say Minnesota's pass defense is a little better, but Goff and Keenum, their stats aren't that different. Their play style is pretty similar. Defenses aren't that different. I think it's going to be a battle of running back. Do you take a combination of Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon or Todd Gurley? I'm going to go with Gurley and the Rams, even though it's at Minnesota. I'm going to go with Gurley.
I respect that pick. Like I said, I battled with that for a long time, but I like that home field advantage in Minneapolis. The Chiefs at the Giants. I don't feel like I need to explain this much. I'm going with the Chiefs. The Giants are coming off of giving the 49ers their first win of the season. They look they look horrendous. They do not. At the beginning of the season, if you asked me who's going to win the NFC East and was a potential NFC Super Bowl favorite, I would have told you the New York Giants. I understand Odell Beckham's down, but there's no excuse right now for this team to have only won one game and it's week 11. So, and I like what the Chiefs are doing, even though the Chiefs, they faltered a little bit from that very hot start they had. I like the Chiefs in New York.
I like the Chiefs too, and now I have even more of a dislike for the Giants. I never really disliked the Giants, I'm going to say, but I didn't like how they were playing because they were one of my Super Bowl favorites coming into the season too. They told Davis Webb to get ready, which makes you think they're considering replacing Eli. Geno Smith is number 2 on the depth chart at quarterback, so that's kind of, I don't know. I'm like, give me Geno, forget Davis. But, yeah, I think Kansas City, far superior. Could it be a trap game? If New York's defense plays like they did last year, it could definitely be a trap game. The odds of that, I think, are less than 5%. Kansas City's going to win.
Let's see, Washington at New Orleans. Give me New Orleans. New Orleans is, again, we've stated this several times. They're the hottest team in football. Coming off of, they dropped 40 points on the Buffalo Bills last week. A team that is still in the playoffs in the AFC and and they held Tyrod Taylor to only 50-some yards. So 57, and that's 50-some yards passing, not rushing, passing. I like the New Orleans Saints in this game. I'm not picking against them until they lose.
New Orleans as well. I'm not picking against them until they lose, like I said about the Jags as well. I don't even know where to start. Their defense is so good. They got Tyrod Taylor benched. Tyrod Taylor he's not a bad player. He completed, was it last year, I think, it might have been the year before, completed 72% of his passes in the season. Last year, he was playing with the worst team. This year, he's been doing good things. He still has him in the playoff race. I'm kind of puzzled why they benched him for Nathan Peterman. I'm not making those choices, but I don't know. The defense, if any defense, I don't care who it is or what quarterback, if they get a quarterback benched, then they're playing better than someone expected.
I do like the Saints are always the team. They play so much better in the Superdome than they do anywhere else. And it's worth noting they dropped 40 points on the Bills in Buffalo. And that was a game that we considered very close. We were thinking, we might go either way. Well, we both picked the Saints, if I'm not mistaken. So we both go with the Saints against the Redskins. Speaking of the Bills at the Chargers, and as he stated, Nathan Peterman will be starting this game. I am also puzzled by that. I don't understand it. You're in the middle of a playoff race, and you have a decent, proven quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, and you want to go against that. That just seems risky to me for the young guy who you have no idea what he's really going to do. It's not a terrible team to start him out against, I guess, with the Chargers. But honestly, I like the Chargers. I think Peterman has a little bit of growing pains in this game. I would be shocked if they eventually go back to Tyrod for the end of this game, but I like the Chargers in LA.
I'm going the Chargers as well. Nathan Peterman will leave his first NFL start with nightmares of Joey Bosa. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Buffalo was a perennial playoff team in the 90s, mid to late 90s. Well, actually, it was most of the 90s, not just mid to late. Started in the early. I think it was Doug Flutie took them deep into playoffs and they got benched. They were still winning in playoffs and he got benched. It kind of reminds me of that. Even though they're not in playoffs yet, they were contending for New England for the top spot and got benched. I think the Chargers are going to make them regret that. They're going to, like I say, they're going to give Peterman some nightmares, and he's going to have a rough first start, I think. It's not that their defense is really good, but they have a really good corner.
So the Bengals at the Broncos. Give me the Broncos in Mile High. If it were in Cincinnati, I would probably go the other way. Yeah, Denver does not look good right now. Brock Osweiler looks like Brock Osweiler, not a great quarterback, and I like but I don't. It's so hard for a team to go into Denver and escape with a win unless your name is Tom Brady. And even then, he's 3-6, 4-6, excuse me, in Denver. So, give me the Broncos in Mile High. The defense, I think, shuts Andy Dalton and the offense down. And I think it's not a blowout, but I think Denver wins by 4 points.
I think Denver will win not because of how good Denver of a team is, but Marvin Lewis, the Bengals coach. A.J. Green is going to be playing against either Aqib Talib or Harris, probably Aqib Talib. Marvin Lewis don't know how to use a backfield that has Gio Bernard, Jeremy Hill, and Joe Mixon. Doesn't know how to use that for some reason. Not even playing John Ross, the 40-yard dash king.
They've also got a very interesting project in Josh Malone that has been underused. But the Bengals have talent on offense. It's just they haven't really been able to get their footing in a sense. It seems like.
I think the loss is not going to. Cincinnati's going to lose, but not because of anything Denver does, except shutting down A.J. Green, which I don't know. They might not shut him down, but he's not going to reach the end zone more than once at the most, and I don't think that's going to be enough to win. The loss is going to be more on the shoulders of Marvin Lewis.
So the Patriots traveling to Oakland. This is a tough game for me. I like what the Patriots offense is. Honestly, give me the Raiders. I'm going to go against them for one reason and one reason only. New England's got to go cross country. And teams always seem to struggle, or I won't say always. A lot of teams struggle when they have to fly across the country. Now, granted, a lot of times, as I stated before, that is if your name is not Tom Brady. But I like Oakland with the home field advantage in Oakland as they got to go all the way to California.
I'm surprised you actually said that because I was pulling for the upset at Oakland too. And Oakland's actually only one game back from a wild card. So if Baltimore and Buffalo, per se, both lose this week, which we predicted Buffalo to, and I predicted Baltimore to, Oakland will be in the playoff race after starting off terrible. I think, what were they, 0-4, 0-3 or something? They started off really bad. I say Oakland. Derek Carr has been not as good as he was supposed to be, but he's still been all right. Marshawn Lynch had a great week last week. The defense has a talent. They can't mold it together for whatever reason, but neither does New England. So I'm going Oakland.
Eagles at Dallas. It's same thing with Seattle. Same thing with the Saints. I'm not picking against the Eagles until they give me a reason as they lose. And I also don't trust this Cowboys team to keep up with the Philadelphia Eagles this week, so I like the Eagles.
The only way Dallas is going to win is if Jerry Jones pulls off something stupid and gets Zeke back on the field, I think. I like Dak Prescott. They're going to need all the help they can get to beat Philadelphia, so I'm going Philly.
Falcons at Seahawks. I like Seahawks. I like Seattle and Seattle. Falcons, don't get me wrong, very respectable team, but give me the Seattle Seahawks, especially in Seattle. And this will be a little bit of a tribute game to Richard Sherman, I think.
Yeah, if Julio plays, which I think he's expected to play, I think the injuries are behind him for now. He's going to be matched up against Shaquille Griffin. So I think Julio will have a big game. But Russell Wilson, he is Houdini. I'm going Seattle just because of Russell Wilson.
So next Thursday, Minnesota takes on the Detroit Lions. In Detroit, I'm calling the upset. Give me the Lions. Matthew Stafford plays very well in this game. And I think we finally see the first game this season where Case Keenum struggles. And I really think that Detroit can escape this game with a win. And that will be rejoiced with fans of the Rams and the Saints, I think.
I'm going with Minnesota. It's a division game. The game's going to be tougher than, they're going to be tougher than out-of-division games because they usually are. I already picked against Minnesota for this week. I think they'll lose to the Rams this week, and I don't think they're going to lose 2 in a row. And if they do this, I'll go as far as saying they're not going to win the division if they lose 2 in a row.
See,
so I'm going Minnesota.
I have a different situation. I picked them to beat LA this week. Yeah. So, all right. so going to the NCAA. The college football playoff rankings right now is number 1 Alabama, number 2 Clemson, number 3 Miami, and number 4 Oklahoma. Do we agree with the top 4? Another question to ask, at number 5, is Wisconsin being disrespected by the college football playoff committee? I think it is, in all honesty, because you've got a Big Ten team, the only Big Ten team left that is undefeated, and you're gonna keep them out for 2 teams with 1 loss. One of them being Clemson with a loss to Syracuse, and Syracuse is fighting for bowl eligibility right now. So I'm okay with keeping Oklahoma in the top 4. I feel like you've got to put Wisconsin in there. You owe it to Wisconsin at 10-0 right now to give them a spot in the college football playoff.
If we're being real right now, honestly, does Clemson deserve to be there? No. But I don't think Oklahoma does either. I think Wisconsin should be number 3 behind Alabama and Miami. Maybe even in front of Miami, even though Miami did completely dismantle Notre Dame.
It is worth noting Miami is undefeated as well in the ACC.
So I think Oklahoma should be either 2 or 3. I honestly think that Clemson, I don't even know why Clemson is so high up, unless they're trying to make it look like they can still be a top 2 team without Deshaun Watson. But I think Oklahoma's only there because their quarterback, Baker Mayfield. You always want a star player in the national championship game. And Alabama doesn't really have a star player. They have good players.
Jalen Hurts. Yeah. They have like Damian Harris, Calvin Ridley still there, Bo Scarborough. They have plenty of playmakers. They don't have a true face of the team, though.
They don't have a superstar type player. And I think they want that in the playoff. And especially Miami doesn't have a huge name. Clemson doesn't have a huge name. I mean, you got to have a superstar in the playoff. One of the top 3 players, arguably in the country. You usually want them. So I think that's the only reason Oklahoma's there. But Wisconsin should definitely be either 2 or 3.
Big news this week. Big firing that a lot of people expected a long time. Butch Jones is gone from the University of Tennessee. And a big name between Vol fans, whether you look on social media or just speak to one of them, the big name they want is John Gruden, a big NFL analyst. Never been an NCAA coach, but he's very, very close with the University of Tennessee. And a lot of people think that Tennessee could get him to come to Knoxville. So the question is, as they call it, do we buy into the groomers?
I don't know how true that would be. I think the bringing back Lane Kiffin, like I have heard, might be more of a possibility because Gruden has showed resistance to coaching again. But if he does come back, I don't know. I think it's definitely possible. I think it's super interesting. Shoot, the Spider 2-Eye Banana, he's going to have that team popping if he goes back. The recruiting class is going to take a turn.
It is worth also noting that Tennessee boosters did fly to Tampa Bay, or it is reported that they flew to Tampa to pitch an idea to Gruden. So, and as a lot of people have said, the ball is in his court. And I've always said this. There's the famous saying, when there's smoke, there's fire. However, you got to make sure that's smoke and not something like fog. Because would I love it? Absolutely. I'm a big Tennessee fan. I would love to see John Gruden going up the sidelines in Knoxville on game day. However, Gruden has said several times he's committed to Monday Night Football and he's going to give it the best that he can. With that being said, I still like the coach that I think Tennessee really needs to push hard after are 2 of them. I think you have to go after Jimbo Fisher or you have to go after Dan Mullen from Mississippi State. But that would be a huge win for Tennessee if they could pull it off and get John Gruden. Imagine all the sayings that could happen at Knoxville.
I think Jimbo Fisher, I actually have heard that name floating around too. When you mentioned it, it reminded me because I'm from West Virginia, so I knew that Jimbo and Nick Saban were both from West Virginia, so it reminded me. I was like, hey, that's awesome. Jimbo Fisher has a national championship, at least one I know. I think it's just one.
He was going to compete for one this year, but his quarterback, DeAndre Francois, went down against Alabama in the first game, and then it all just fell apart after that.
I don't know. Jimbo Fisher, he's a good coach. Jameis Winston, he took him under his wing, played really well. So, yeah, I think Jimbo would be a good addition, I believe.
So we're gonna move on to the predictions this week. Several interesting games. A few of them just a formality. Especially this first one, Mercer at Alabama. At number one Alabama. I don't need to explain that. I like Alabama in Tuscaloosa against a non-Power 5 team like this. I feel like I don't need to explain myself.
Yeah, Alabama. I mean, Mercer may score a field goal.
Yeah. I don't even know if I'd put it past that because Alabama's defense plays very good right now. UVA at Miami. Again, Miami's playing. I thought that whenever Virginia Tech was going there, that maybe they weren't necessarily a team that was going to be a lights-out team by any means. But Miami has proven me wrong in every single facet. UVA is one of those interesting teams. Still, I don't believe. No, they're still fighting for bowl eligibility, I think.
They got it. They got their
They
six
did
win
end up
again.
getting it. So, UVA, well, I guess at this point they really have nothing to lose. They have something to win, but they have nothing to lose, so they'll play their hardest. But Miami is playing very good. Their defense and that turnover chain, I think you'll see that plenty of times this week.
Miami. I actually have a guy that my brother graduated from college with his sister. He plays at UVA, so I'm a big fan of him. It's Daniel Ham. He's their backup running back. So I not like UVA as a whole, but Miami is. I mean, if you blow out Notre Dame, you're gonna beat UVA.
If you blow out Notre Dame in the fashion they did it, it wasn't a shootout by any means. Like it wasn't a 48-21 win. It was complete domination in both sides of the ball. Number 24, Michigan, traveling to number 5, Wisconsin. Again, I just went on a spiel about how Wisconsin getting disrespected, giving Wisconsin to knock off the Wolverines in Madison.
Yeah, I went on the same spiel. But I think this game might show us why Wisconsin's out of the top 4. I'm going to go with Michigan just because I like Harbaugh. Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. If they had a quarterback, if they could get the quarterback thing situated, I think they'd be a top 5 team in the league. But they don't. And they're at number 4 with 2 losses. Or number 24, I'm sorry. I was looking at the 4. Number 24 with 2 losses. There's people with more losses higher up in the rankings than them. The quarterback play is hurting them, keeping them from being an elite team. But I think it'll at least be a close game. But I'm going Michigan.
I think it is a close game too, but you got to think about where Michigan doesn't have a quarterback. Wisconsin does, and Alex Hornibrook. He may not be a big name, but he's still a solid player for the Badgers. Number 12, TCU at Texas Tech. Texas Tech, again, always one of those teams looking for an upset. They always seem to play up to their opponents, but I like TCU still. I like this team. They lost to a decent Iowa State team that also knocked off Oklahoma. That's worth noting. But I like TCU against Texas Tech.
Big 12 football at its finest. It's going to be a shootout. And when it comes to these shootouts in the Big 12, you never know who's going to win. The score could be up in the 70s. The rankings don't matter in a way. It just matter who is the better team. TCU, I believe, is the better team, and it usually comes up to whose defense gets one more stop than the other. I know that it sounds like, if they get another stop than the other, that means they have more points. It doesn't always. Sometimes you can not score because your offense just makes a mistake. I think it comes down to whichever defense makes the initial stop, and that might set the pace for the defense the rest of the game. I'm going to go TCU, but you can't, even though Texas Tech is unranked, you can't rule them out.
You never can rule out a team like the Red Raiders. Number 16, Mississippi State at Arkansas. Arkansas fighting for bowl eligibility right now. They're 4-6. Give me Mississippi State out. Arkansas won't make a bowl this year, I don't think. Mississippi State, Dan Mullen's got this team looking good. Nick Fitzgerald playing very well for the Bulldogs. And don't be shocked if Brett Bielema is not in Arkansas much longer. I like Mississippi State in this game.
Mississippi State, one of the teams that are ranked higher than Michigan with the worst record, I want to point out. But anyway, I still think Mississippi State will win. Fitzgerald, I like Fitzgerald as a quarterback. The team's good. It's a good team. I'm going to go with Mississippi State.
A little bit of a local matchup or local team going up. Big 12 football, West Virginia versus West Virginia hosting the Texas Longhorns. Give me West Virginia. Texas still doesn't. They're Texas. They're one of the greatest. They're a lot like another local team we'll talk about later on, but they are one of the greatest college football programs in history. They are one of the they might be one of the worst Big 12 programs right now. I think that West Virginia wins this game, and I expect it to be by at least 2 touchdowns. I don't like what Texas is doing right now, especially in Morgantown.
Yeah, I'm going Mountaineers. Morgantown's typically a tough place to play. There's some crazy Mountaineer fans. I actually have a lot of friends that go to school up there. Some of those fans are crazy. You got to be to burn couches in the road. But Will Grier has been playing good. Texas is a team that I'd never like picking against because every year I feel like there's 1 or 2 teams that they should lose to by a good margin that they somehow pull off some kind of upset. But I don't know. I can't go against Will Grier. Kevin White's brother, Karan White, has been playing lights out at receiver. They have a Biletnikoff Award nominee, David Sills, at receiver. I'm going to go WVU. They're going to light up the scoreboard.
The Citadel at number 2 Clemson. Again, like Alabama, it's a formality. Clemson continues to win. I think they beat the Citadel, and there really isn't much of a discussion. Unless it's an Appy State story, but I don't see that Clemson's going to win this game, in Death Valley especially.
The Citadel's fighting for bowl eligibility with this game. They have 5 wins. They need a 6th. They're not going to get it. Clemson's going to beat them. Yeah, they might, at the beginning of the game, it might be really close just for like the first quarter or so. But a lot of games are when they're, because the big teams usually overlook the smaller teams. So at the beginning of the game, it might be really close. Citadel may take like a 1-point lead in the first quarter. Then Clemson's going to pull apart and win by at least 3 touchdowns, I believe. Maybe 4 or 5.
Pitt traveling to Blacksburg and taking on the Virginia Tech Hokies. Give me the Hokies. Tech coming off of 2 straight losses, one to Miami in the last week. I said last week on the broadcast, Georgia Tech, they're one of those teams running the triple option. It's always one to look out for. I don't care who you are, and I think a team that needs to look out for them by the end of the season is Georgia. But Tech coming off those 2 bad losses, and I like Virginia Tech taking on Pitt, especially in Blacksburg.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tech as well. Pitt's just an annoying team, I feel like, because they're never great, but they're never terrible. And that used to be a really good team, but they're usually around the middle of the pack, usually an average team. But Tech, coming off the 2 straight losses, they're going to be looking for redemption. They're going to get it this week.
Number 4, Oklahoma traveling to Kansas. Kansas might be the worst program in D1 football right now. Their record doesn't show it because there's some teams that have lost games, but I'm pretty sure that 1 win is to an FCS opponent. Oklahoma wins big. I don't care if it's in Kansas or not. Oklahoma wins big. Baker Mayfield has a field day.
Yeah, Mayfield, I believe, will have 400 yards and 3 touchdowns at least. Not trying to disrespect Kansas, but Mayfield's one of the top quarterbacks in the class. Kansas is 1-9.
Kentucky traveling to Athens to take on the Bulldogs. I like Georgia, even though Kentucky is an interesting team right now. The Bulldogs get a win in Athens between the hedges. I like Jake Fromm to have a big game. Nick Chubb is always a fun player to look out for. And Riley Ridley also is an interesting prospect. I like Georgia in this game against the Wildcats.
I'm going Georgia as well. It's interesting that Kentucky's 7-3 and unranked, 2 losses behind Georgia. And Kentucky is an SEC team. They're a Power 5 team, and they're 7-3 and unranked, which is weird.
It's actually an SEC East rivalry right now in this game.
See, it's extremely weird for me that they're unranked, which is a different story. But I think Georgia will win, but not by a large margin, less than 2 scores.
So, Syracuse at Louisville. The only reason I included this is because Louisville is already bowl eligible. Syracuse is not. They are 4-6, I believe, fighting for bowl eligibility, but I don't think they'll make a bowl. I think Lamar Jackson gets it done in Louisville, especially with him. He's still a dark horse in this Heisman race, but I think that Syracuse can't get it done in Louisville. If it was in Syracuse, I'd be tempted to say something else, but I like the Cardinals.
Lamar Jackson. enough said, really. I love Lamar Jackson, and he's going to pull it off.
Number 19, NC State, traveling to Wake Forest. Give me Wake Forest. Give me Wake Forest. NC State is one of the. I think technically right now they may still have a shot at going to the ACC championship if they win out and Clemson loses out, which one of those teams is to the Citadel, so it's probably not going to happen. But Wake Forest has just overachieved to me this year. They're bowl eligible, and give me the Demon Deacons in Wake Forest.
Wake Forest is 6-4, NC State 7-3, and is ranked 19 in the nation. I was thinking of Wake Forest in this too. If Wake Forest wins, they'll finish with the same record. NC State probably will not drop 7 spots out of the top 25 because it's rare to drop so much. But I don't know. I like Wake Forest in this. You can't. I actually heard a conversation. I might have been talking to somebody the other day. You just can't. Wake Forest, you can't count them out. When you count them out, they're like, oh, I shouldn't have counted them out. I mean, they're one of those teams. So, yeah, Wake Forest. I'm going Wake Forest.
The last local team we've got, and a big headline this week, number 20 LSU at Tennessee in Knoxville. The question: does Tennessee find a way to find their footing after the firing of Butch Jones? Does Brady Hoke get it done as an interim coach? Another one, honestly, I can finally pick them for once. Give me the Vols in Knoxville. I think that Brady Hoke gets this team fired up with the idea of playing for the seniors. You know, their season with Butch Jones being gone, and it was just not. It's been a total disaster. LSU sitting here ranked. Tennessee's fighting for bowl eligibility. They may see, well, let's get it going. Let's knock off this team right now. And I like the Vols in this game. Call me crazy, but I think John Kelly goes off, and Tennessee's defense comes up big in this game in Neyland.
You took my upset. I was going Tennessee too. I like LSU's running back Darius Geis. Is it? His last name is spelled weird. Looks like goose, like juice with a G. Anyway, I'm going Tennessee because teams typically play better. If there was a coach that lost a team, if the coach lost the respect of the players, which I don't know if Jones did, but it's a big possibility because they have talent on the team, of course. If a coach has lost the team and the coach is replaced, then in most scenarios the team plays out of their mind the next game just to try to ruin the season for the other team if their season's already lost. Given LSU's already bowl eligible, I think Tennessee will win just because the change in coaching, the change in leadership, it can give you that extra oomph to get over the hump.
I think Darius Geis plays very well, but for once in this season, Tennessee's offense gets moving. Will McBride finds a way, and I think Tennessee wins this game. It'll be a very close game. I think Tennessee wins on a field goal, or maybe just barely, a little bit more. And our last game, UCLA at USC. The two top quarterback prospects, Sam Darnold going up against Josh Rosen. Give me USC. I like UCLA, but I like USC at home against this struggling UCLA team. Because, yes, the big headline is quarterback versus quarterback, but you got to look at these teams as a whole, and I like USC the way they're playing more than I like UCLA right now.
I'm actually going to go UCLA. I know they're 5-5. They're fighting for bowl eligibility. It should be the first time in a while that a top quarterback prospect has just didn't even make it to the bowl game. USC's 9-2, ranked 11. I don't know. Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold. Josh Rosen's draft stock could be damaged by not even making a bowl game. It could be like Ben Simmons not even making the tournament at LSU a few years ago, given he was still the top pick, correct? Mm-hmm. It could still be a situation like that, but it could hurt him. It could hurt him really. It could have a terrible impact on his NFL career if he doesn't make it to a bowl game.
It's worth saying Rosen was hurt for a little bit this season, so not all of that is on him. Plus, his defense has not been good.
He's been playing good. He's not been playing bad by any means. He's not been playing as a top 2 player, no, but he's been playing as a top 5 quarterback.
His defense has not been good to him right now. So that's going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes from Radio Free Radford. If you liked what you heard, be sure to tune in again next Friday from 11 a.m. to noon. Thanks for listening.